Greetings Whovians and welcome to yet another Doctor Who action figure review. Today I'm going to be talking about the 7th Doctor figure set, or as I like to call it, Silver Nemesis set, because it's basically a Silver Nemesis set. We have 2 Cybermen, 1 Cyber Leader and 1 Cyberman, and a re-release of the 7th Doctor, which is sort of similar to the 7th Doctor, which we got with a Renegade Dalek, which was released as part of a Toys R Us Dr. Dalek 2-pack in 2013, just in time for the 50th anniversary. Overall, I think the packaging, once again, it's really great. I've said this over and over again. Things are slightly different this time though, because it's not a Doctor and Dalek 2-pack. It says here what it includes, and you can see the figures inside. One little tiny complaint I have, and I think it's just with this particular set, it's just the way it's being packaged. It's not too much of a complaint. It's only that the Cybermen's heads are like sort of chopped off because you've got the style of the box in the way, but if you move it up like that, then you can see the figures more. Just a little nitpick I've got. So maybe character options maybe could make bigger boxes in the future, who knows. There at the side you've got an image of the figures which are part of this set. You've got the 13th Doctor's TARDIS, a little inkling that we will be getting that one day. And at the back of the box, again, you've got another image of the figures which are included in the set. So there you have your 7th Doctor, you have your Cyber Leader and your Cyberman, or Cyber Lieutenant, whatever you want to call them. Interestingly, these Cybermen also come with accessories, which is quite rare with these sets, as they aim to make these as cheap as possible. But I'm really glad that they come with these guns. So yeah, overall I think that this set's packaging is great. Another little complaint I have is just there's a lot of space at the back. They could have maybe made a bit more of a bio here, but I don't know. That's just another nitpick I have. So yeah, without further ado, let's take a look at the figures outside of the box. So here is the 7th Doctor and the Silver Nemesis Cybermen outside of the box. So first off, let's take a look at the 7th Doctor. In terms of sculpt, the figure is almost exactly the same. It's got the same head sculpt which was seen on the Ghostlight 7th Doctor figure for the first time all those years ago in the 11th Doctor set, and it's the same head sculpt of what we see on the 7th Doctor, which is included with the Axis Strike Dalek. Of course, that one, the hair has a few grey streaks here and there. Of course, this one was the season 24 costume, so in a way this is sort of like a re-release of the 7th Doctor figure, which was included with a Dalek in a 2013 set, something I never really got my hands on back in the day because, well, to be honest, I just couldn't be arsed getting it. I wouldn't have minded the Dalek though, but I wasn't fussed about getting the 7th Doctor in that. So yeah, this is more like a re-release of that figure if you manage to get that. The only sort of difference with this figure is that the paint applications are quite different on this figure. I mean, looking at him, of course, as I said before, this is one of the best head sculpts that we've ever had for any character in the Doctor Who line, made by Character Options. So once again, I think they really did a good job. I mean, it's a few years old, this head sculpt, so you know, even back in the day they did a good job. The costume, despite its inaccuracies, it's the exact same what we come to expect with these 7th Doctor figures. Obviously the jumper is still incorrect, it always has been incorrect. The row of the question marks is the incorrect number. We have 7 rows, it should be 6, things like that, and a few other inaccuracies here and there as well, such as the chain. I believe it should be silver, not gold. A bit weird that they never managed to rectify that for this particular re-release. And for this re-release as well, paint apps on the jackets are different. They made it more brighter, as according to Al Juar, the head of character options. That's how this looked in this particular story, Silver Nemesis. I'm not sure what he means there, because to me it just looks exactly the same as his cream jacket does for most of the time what he wears it in the series, so I don't know what he was on about there. Few differences on this figure as well. There's less detailing on the tie. It's just been painted red, so we don't have a zigzags or anything like that going on. And the handkerchief, it's just been painted in a normal burgundy colour. And again, unlike the original release of the Season 24 Sylvester McCoy, there was no patterns on this. So in a way it is sort of different, but at the same time it's very vanilla to me. It's a very vanilla figure. I wouldn't say this is the reason to get this set, but for whatever reason, if you have somehow missed out on 7th Doctor figures up to now, then I'd say it is worth getting. Here is a comparison between the original release of the Season 24 and 25 7th Doctor and this new 7th Doctor variant, and you can just see, just putting the two side by side, I didn't really realise until I've done this and I've put it on camera that this new version, it's so bright, and it just looks a little bit odd now that I put in next to the original release. And as I said, there's more detail in the handkerchief, there's more detail on the tie, and all around really I think that the original release, along with the hat and the smiley face, and plus the umbrella accessory, which this version doesn't, but understandably we didn't get that with the B&M sets because they are budget sets, but this set does include accessories. I'll go into that in a minute. Overall, I do think that the original version of the 7th Doctor is still the far superior one to this new one. Now on to the Cybermen, two figures which I have always wanted to get my hands on. These are a re-release of the two figures which were released years ago by Forbidden Planet. Of course, it was one of the few sets which I never managed to get my hands on due to pricing and due to the nature of its rarity. But here we are, B&M have re-released these figures along with new paint applications, and honestly I'm kind of glad that I did miss out on those now, because I think that by pictures and everything, these two definitely look really nice and they do actually stand out on the shelf. These Cybermen aren't Cybermen which I'm particularly fond of in the series. I mean, the story Silver Nemesis I'm not particularly that fond of, but it's nice to see another variation of the 1980s Cybermen, and it's especially nice to see what was ultimately the final variation of the Cybermen to appear in the series' original run. So I'm going to talk about the one figure because basically it is the same figure twice over, one of them with black handlebars, one of them without the black handlebars. And you may have noticed that I'm using a lights today for this review, and the reason I'm doing that is just to show off how shiny that these figures are. Now obviously Al Juar did mention that they couldn't use a chrome material for this because it would mean that it would flake off. To be honest with you, I'm totally fine with that, because if that meant that the figures were going to be of poor quality, then I wouldn't have bothered getting this. But I think that character options, they've done a really great job just with the paint applications for this. They really do the job of replicating how these Cybermen look, because they were really shiny. Just moving it around, I think it does the job extraordinarily well. Now, what we have here in terms of sculpt is totally the same as the original sculpt, which was used on the original 2010 release for the 2-pack of these guys. But of course, as I never managed to get the originals, these two are actually like brand new figures to me. So I'm going to go into more detail about the sculpt. So I'm just going to take the gun out of his hand. I'll talk more about those in just a sec. The body is a brand new sculpt, so if you think this is just like a reuse of the Earthshock sculpt, which was used on the original Wave 2 release back in the day, then you'd be mistaken, because all of this is new. Everything from the feet all the way up to the shoulders. And this piece is new as well, this chest piece. The head, I'm not sure if that is a reuse of the Earthshock sculpt or not. I'm not entirely sure on it. I want to say yes, but there are a few notable differences about a head. So, we just take a look at the head. The eyes have been painted black, which I think makes it more emotionless. You may remember, if you watched my reviews last year of the B&M sets, of certain characters that were included in those sets, such as Brigadier, he looked like motionless, and it didn't really work for that figure in hindsight. I think that the Forbidden Planet exclusives, the originals of that Brigadier, they work much better. But for figures like this, I think it is absolutely impeccable. The original releases of the Silver Nemesis Cybermen didn't have this. The eyes were just simply painted silver inside the sockets. So I think it just adds a little bit more to this figure, because, well, what it is basically, it's silver all the way around, with little touches of black here and there. So I think the black eyes definitely does make this stand out a lot more. Now, you can't tell on camera, this mouthpiece here is like a new sculpt. Well, of course it's a reuse of the original, but basically it's not the same as the Earthshock version, which is correct, because the mouthpieces did change by this point in the series in 1988. You can just make out a jawline just underneath there, so I quite like that. And of course everything else is what you come to expect with Cybermen: handlebars, little hinges here and there. This piece on the top here, don't have the green bit at the top, because these Cybermen didn't have it, whereas the Earthshock ones did. Chest piece, you have holes in the middle of the chest, which is correct, and you can see like a bit of the circuitry inside. Really like how the arms are sculpted. I think that it matches how they did look on screen. And there you can just see at the back where the chest unit connects basically to his back, and you've got these wires which are just sculpted plastic. It does the job. I think that it is unique to this variant of the Cybermen. And just looking at the back there, you can see they have sculpted on the screws for the back of the head, where the actors would have put on the helmets while they were filming this story. And just looking at this, like all of the detail, all the creases on the suit all around, it's just absolutely impeccable. Looking at the hand, he's wearing his cricket hand, because they were like cricket gloves. So that was also a nice bit of detail that character options added in, and they didn't need to do that, but they did anyway. And All of that is present on the original sculpts of these figures, so if you did get those, then this is basically the same as what you come to expect with those original Silver Nemesis Cybermen. But of course, the big difference, as I mentioned, paint applications, the more shinier, you've got the black eyes, and all around I think actually there's more detail going on here than what we got in the original versions. But if you did get those, I think this is a perfect opportunity for army building. The only downside of the set would be you getting another 7th Doctor, unless for some weird reason you want an army of Sylvester McCoys on your shelf, which I think would be quite terrifying. But all in all, I think this is a very strong figure, and I think this set is worth getting just for these guys, I think, and it is a real good opportunity for those who missed out, like myself, to army build all of these guys. To the average viewer, these Cybermen are just like Earthshock Cybermen, but actually on closer inspection, they're not. But anyway, that's it for detail. I'm really impressed with the detail on these guys. Now, the articulation, head doesn't move, totally fine with that, not bothered in the slightest because the heads didn't move in the series anyway. The arms can do a 360-degree turn, but just be mindful, it could rub on that, so just be careful when you're trying that. Biceps have articulation, joints at the elbows, joints at the wrist, joints at the legs, they can move up and down, go from side to side. Waist can do a 360, thighs can do a 360, knees can bend back and forth, and that is pretty much it. So overall, absolutely amazing, and we have this figure twice over with this guy here who is the Cyber Leader. Pretty much the same figure what you're getting, except for the black handlebars to signify his rank in the Cyber Army. And here is a comparison shot of the original Classic Series Wave 2 Earthshock Cyberman along with this new Silver Nemesis Cyberman, which has been released recently by B&M. And you can see actually there are huge differences with this figure. The helmet isn't exactly the same because, as I said, headpieces are different, mouthpiece is different, even up to like little details like the side just here, these bits here, completely different. And as I said, chest piece is different, rest of the body is completely different. It was a new sculpt for this Cyberman because for whatever reason they did change the costumes for this story. And of course this one's wearing boots, this one isn't. And it really does show that these just aren't simply reuse of the Earthshock models. So I'm really pleased that actually there is a variety now in the shelf for 1980s Cybermen. Really pleased. And that is all I have to say for this review. So overall, I wouldn't say it is the strongest set out of the B&M line, but it's definitely one that I recommend picking up if you missed out on the original versions of these two Cybermen, as they are easily the highlight for me. The only bonus, if you want to call it a bonus, is you're getting a 7th Doctor figure, and I guess if you missed out on this version of the 7th Doctor in the past, then this is a perfect opportunity for you now to pick this up. So thank you very much once again for watching this Doctor Who action figure review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more, and I shall see you next time.